I want to be crystal clear. What I dreamed my story would be and what my story was are two different things.
Today on the Servant Leadership Podcast, we welcome Brad Formsma. Brad is the founder and CEO of The Giving Company and author of I Like Giving. He's spent years helping leaders, families, and organizations move generosity from an idea to a lifestyle. Brad's work centers on the 7 ways of living generously through our thoughts, words, money, time, attention, belongings, and influence. His work today spans from corporate leadership to families and helps people see that generosity is not just limited to money. Join us as we talk about generosity as a leadership discipline and how giving is essential to becoming a better servant leader.
Brad, thank you for joining us on the Servant Leadership Podcast.
So good to be here, Chris.
When I first bumped into you, it's because you were speaking at a conference in Florida. And when I saw your book title, I Like Giving, I immediately thought, who writes a book called I Like Giving? And then I got to sit in the session and learn a ton from you, literally pages of notes. How did you get into this world of giving?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think Donald Miller would hate the title because, he's always about his story worth approach. And I'm like, no, it's really just birthed out of a giving story. Okay. So, but to answer your question, for me, my grandpa modeled the generous life to me when I was about 11 years old, and Mom came home and announced that we were going to go from 3 to 5 kids in the family. She was having twins. This is back in the day where they literally delivered one baby and then went to look for the other. I know, a little graphic there, but I mean, this is 1981, so think, folks, how things have progressed. But our house went from pretty normal 3-kid American house to 5 chaotic kid moments. And I started tagging along with my grandpa, who really modeled this generous life for me.
I mean, starting a company called The Generous Company, people probably come to you asking, like, what do you do? And how do you do it? And I know you go around teaching about generosity. Talk about when people approach you, what their first take is on even what you do and how radically different this is than typical.
Sure. Well, I think it's important to kind of just step a little bit back. For 18 plus years, I had a for-profit business in Michigan that continued to grow. It was a great business from an income standpoint. It wasn't so great on the liquidity side when I felt called to sell it. So just to know, I didn't just randomly pick up this idea, I like giving. I'm a faith-oriented guy. I was reading a book on the power and voice of the Holy Spirit, and really got this impression and this thought, I'm going to use you to encourage people in their giving, and that will bring greater hope and joy to many. And it will be based on this truth that it's more blessed to give than receive. That has to kind of set there for your listeners to say, well, that's 2005 when that happened. And not long after that, I ended up selling the business, and one thing led to another, and we started into this generous life adventure, for sure. But, to know me is to know 6 words: entrepreneurial spirit, life passion is giving. And when I looked out there, I saw a huge lack of teaching from a biblical perspective on the truth that it's more blessed to give than receive. Now, let me clarify that. There's some wonderful organizations that do that, but it tended to be for people over 40 with a lot of resources. And I never saw any of that when I read the verse. It was for everybody. So whether you had a little or a lot, you could play. And it wasn't also just related to money. We all love to measure things, but there's so many other ways to be generous outside of our money. It's more difficult, but generous words, generous thoughts, generous time, That one you could probably measure a little closer. But generous influence, sharing your friendships, helping somebody else get to where they need to go. If it wasn't Tom Cole, our mutual friend, and Mike Timmis introducing me to New Canaan, you and I never would have met because I would have never been there doing a talk.
Yeah.
So I really felt like as an entrepreneur, you just do this. You solve a problem or you create something that solves the problem is a better way to say it. So, or if something's broken, you fix it. Those are the things you do as an entrepreneur. So, I think I can go on, but I don't want to just run ahead of what we do today and how we solve for the lack of what I was noticing back in 2010.
Well, how do you solve for it? And I would imagine exactly like what you said, people might look at you and think, well, you had a successful business before this, and all the people doing this have a lot of resources. But when you bring in these other components, everyone has the ability to be generous.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be crystal clear. What I dreamed my story would be and what my story was are two different things. So I made great income in the years of my business, but it was a asset sale. I didn't walk away with 30 million bucks and thought, let's go talk about generosity. That's a fun thing to do. So it was a significant faith walk, and one that I am so grateful I had the opportunity to live out. Although at the time, you might have sent me flowers if you saw the balance sheet. It wasn't pretty, but we went through it and we pushed through it because God was with us. So today, our mission is we exist to help people love God, love others, and live generously. And so the organization I Like Giving works that out through a few of its initiatives. And I'll just pick one right now at Generous Family. We create world-class children's books that are written in a Dr. Seuss-ish style that teach values that last based on a biblical principle. And so really geared towards that under 10 audience, but they catch and they're powerful. Jasper G is the first generosity giraffe. And it's really a story based on me and my grandpa, Chris. It's the book number 1, Jasper G and the Me Thinking Madness. And so what we try to do is take language from a biblical perspective to give parents language to teach and train up their kids in the way that they would go. Okay? So if you think about me thinking, what's the opposite of that? Being a big-hearted giver. And Jasper starts out in the story being a me thinker, and he doesn't have a lot of friends, and his life sucks. But later on, Grandpa and him have a conversation, and Grandpa begins to help him understand that, Jasper, maybe I know why your life and world is small. Because you're a me thinker, and you don't care about others at all. And so that is one of the ways then that we help a family and a child understand, I have a choice today. Am I going to be a me thinker or am I going to be a big-hearted giver? But we don't stop there. We roll right into book 2, Ellie the Elephant and the Stinkin' Thinkin', because generous thoughts is a huge thing. And so many of these things are woven in around the 7 ways of living generously that we talk about organizationally and what we teach from. So being generous with our words and our time and our attention and our money and our influence and our belongings and our thoughts, of course. And so that way, back to where you were asking me earlier, we can wake up every day and play the generous life. And it doesn't matter if we're worth $10, 10 million, or 100 million and beyond, because everybody can go in those areas. And so, and Scripture's so clear on this, be generous on every occasion. Well, there you go. We don't really have to go further than that. It can't always be a check or a piece of paper with a dead president's face on it.
When you talk about, and I love the kids' books, and we're going to link to those for those that are listening in the description so people can check them out. But is there a way to get teaching generosity wrong? So a lot of well-meaning parents might be listening to this thinking, oh, I love that. I want to go buy the books and I should teach my kids to be generous. Do you find that people sometimes teach generosity poorly, or is it like, hey, any generosity is good generosity?
I've never been asked that, but I always think of grandpa saying you can't steer a parked car. And
Mm.
it's like, okay, do I miss? Do I get it wrong? Am I giving from, wanting to get something? Is my motivation? Well, I can tell you this: if you don't do any giving, you're going to steal all the joy from your life because there's no chance to produce it. And along the way, you can do it. I interviewed Bill Johnson the other day at Bethel Church, and he said, giving with expectation of something is buying.
Mm.
And I thought, how often does that happen in our giving, even if we're sophisticated givers, where we give and we're like, but I want to make sure it's stewarded well. But I want to make sure it's got that kingdom ROI. And you're like, okay, I mean, all that stuff's good to think about and all that, but where's the Spirit of God leading you to give? And I believe giving is a hard issue, and I think most people would agree with that. So I would say start to start, and be very careful if you start reading your kids and grandkids the generous kids books, because they will mess with you. They're designed to do that. And, we're interested in getting it into the family. And there are tens of thousands of families that have these books in their homes. And it's by God's grace, they're very popular because kids are connecting with the characters and the message.
Mm.
I mean, Franny the Flamingo and the amazing attention. I think attention is one of the most generous things we can give to somebody. And we're in a world where we got a lot of distractions, don't we, Chris?
Quite a few. It's interesting because, and I was talking with my wife about this actually. So often people are asked to give and to get involved in things. And sometimes I find, maybe it's just me, but people give out of obligation or guilt. And then you brought up a really interesting thing about where's the heart and the joy in giving. How do you help people wrestle with those two things that are very real, I think, at least in my life and probably for others listening?
Well, I mean, I try to do things that God wants me to do and follow his principles, and I miss all the time, but he's clear on that one. Don't give out of duty or compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And I think he works with a grumpy giver, and he'll convict a no giver, and I've been all three of those, and I know I like the cheerful one the best. Happy to tell you a story around that, but I think it's important to ask yourself as you're flying through the air or driving down the road, where am I today? Am I a cheerful giver? Am I a grumpy giver? Am I a no giver? And there's no judgment in the question, but play the movie forward, as my friend Henry Cloud says. Where's this going to land for you? And if you're into scarcity, you're going to stay grumpy or move into the no giver category. If you're into abundance, biblical abundance, you're going to be cheerful most of the time. And I always say this: if you're feeling manipulated or under compulsion to give, why don't you use that 4-letter word pray for a day or two and see what changes? Because one of my good friends said one time, God doesn't have Fridays. There's a lot of urgency in our world. Oh, we need you. We got the matching giver. Well, if your heart isn't peaceful, and he's telling me in the New Testament, the only place what he loves, I love a cheerful giver, then I think I'm going to go with that versus the urgency of some person, situation, organization. Today, that's how I'm thinking.
That's so good. It's interesting, and I want to come back to that. But one thing that I've seen you do is go into corporations and help them think about how generosity is actually good stewardship in their business, not just on the charitable side too. How do you work with corporations, and what does that look like helping a business think about generosity, which might be absolutely reverse like to what people are taught or think about?
Yeah. Well, I think after 15 years of working, living, studying the generous life, we started to have some of our friends that have significant companies say, we love the spirit of the 7 ways. We love the approach that it's something you get invited into. You get to live this way. You get a choice. And we love how you continue to show us that the 7 ways are so applicable in a for-profit corporation. So one of our friends has a very nice, amazing, large business that makes delicious double doubles, and we'll leave it at there. And so we work together with them to create what we call the Generous Leaders Program. And so it's like a 3-hour workshop, if you will, and it can take a team of 12 or a 1,200, and we work through the 7 ways and how to implement those into the different areas of the business, and how it allows people to grow as a leader. Because if you're thinking about the 7 ways and you're looking at different people on your team at different times, they need some of those different 7 ways. Somebody may have just had a tragic event and they have a medical bill. Well, generous thoughts aren't going to kind of get it done, but $1,000 in an envelope on the desk that we're thinking of you and we're pulling for you is going to do it. Mm. Somebody else might just need an affirming word because they just got chewed out by a client, or some client stopped them, or there was an issue with the product and they were on the other end and just got hammered, and they need somebody to just tell them it's going to be okay and sit in that with them. And everybody has different strengths of those 7 ways. I mean, some are easier for others. So we really walk the team through a fun way for them to learn things about each other that they never knew coming in. I think one of the most powerful things of the Generous Leaders Program is that we get people to talk about things that are not related to their core business. We get them to talk about heart and learn things about each other. I mean, I'll never forget, Chris, one day we put people in groups at different times over this 3-hour workshop, and then I'll sit in on some of the conversations. And one of the questions was, early in your life, was there a giving event that happened to you that you just haven't been able to forget? It marked you. Mm. And one guy was telling how his dad died when he was almost 16. And so his uncle was a farmer down the road, was in charge of looking after him. And he turned 16. And the uncle came and picked him up, and they went to a used truck dealership in their rural city. And kid goes, "Hey, what are we doing?" And he said, "Well, I want to look around at trucks. And I want you to help me pick one out. What would you pick? You kind of know where this is going." And they picked out a $3,000 used pickup truck. And this guy said, my uncle reached into one pocket and pulled out a wad of cash, and reached into another, pulled out another wad, and it was enough to buy the truck for me. Wow. And everybody around that table was just lost it. And this guy started to lose it. But what we learned in that moment, Chris, was so powerful. None of those coworkers knew he had lost his dad at 16. None of them knew he had that level of heartbreak. And none of them knew how special of a relationship he had with his uncle. So now, fast forward, you're in a work environment, maybe you get in a little tussle, you're not getting along, or you're misunderstanding, somebody's got grumpy pants on that day, and you go, maybe, just maybe, I can give them the benefit of the doubt. Wonder what's going on in their world. They're a person. They lost their dad at 16. Mm. And so I think for us, we just find companies that they come to us, that tend to be about servant orientation and wanting to do for others. And so, not being cute, In-N-Out Burger's the answer. But it was this, and she's got a Glassdoor rating over 99%. So that was really a nod to us because we co-developed the program with them. We made a lot of tweaks and adjustments because it was one of those things where you often will go into a company and speak for 45 minutes and set the table, and then come back in the coming months or year and do that longer workshop. And it was just so evident to us that there was a willingness to never rest. We want to continue to get better. We want our associates to have smiles on their face. We want to show them something bigger is in play. But here's the mic drop moment. You take the 7 ways home. You learn them at work, but you take them home. We had one guy, this is so great, the CEO called in and he goes, "You're not going to believe this." He said, "You were here, we did the program. A week later, one of my guys from the warehouse comes in. He says, 'Boss, can I talk to you?' 'Yeah, what's going on, buddy?' He goes, 'Well, my wife yesterday, she said, what's going on at work?' She got all serious. What's going on?' And he's like, 'What do you mean, honey?' And she's like, 'For the last week, you have said nice things to me. They were direct, they were specific, and I know you meant them. But what's going on? Is there a woman there?' And he said, 'No, this guy came in and they were teaching the 7 ways, and one of them was generous words.' And the guy said, 'Our wives like clear compliments, and when it's not connected to anything, and at different times of the day, right?' And this lady thought her husband was having an affair. And so once he said, 'Hey, no, this is a training program we went through as a company,' she goes, 'Don't ever quit that company.'"
Oh, that's awesome.
So, yeah.
I mean, we talk a lot about leadership on this podcast, and in servant leadership specifically. Giving is something that doesn't always come up when we talk about servant leadership, but there's a significant integration between being a great servant leader and being somebody who joyfully gives. Talk about how you see giving making somebody a better servant leader.
Well, the greatest leader was Jesus, and the greatest servant leader was Jesus. So then you say, well, what was he interested in? Well, he was interested in prayer. He was interested in giving and fasting. And, I'm better at 2 of the 3 of those things. You can put that together. But I think those are kind of guides for me. The more you live out a prayerful life and a giving life, and I do fast, but I think that's something you get to work through in your own heart. What is that look like for you? But the whole point was to get you centered on him and others. And in the meantime, you benefit from it from a health perspective. You just have less stress. You have a better life. I was diagnosed with a horrible disease 12 years ago, and I was looking up at the documents the other day, and I remember thinking, gosh, this is the doctor that told me, well, you do a lot of good in the world, and so you're probably going to live longer because it actually is good for your body. So he was a long way from my faith perspective, but even he understood that when we give, it's the best version of ourselves, and it's actually good for our health. It's good for our emotions. It's good for our relationships. It's good. It's good. That's why I like giving.
Well, it's interesting. Obviously, writing a book called I Like Giving, you like to give. Are there instances where you think through, I just had this thing happen, whatever it is, and I wish I would have been generous in a different way, or I wish I would have been generous, or I wish I would have given, and I didn't? Or is it just now that you've been so ingrained in this, it just comes so natural to you?
Oh, I miss less, but I still miss, and I don't really overthink it. There's a lot of pressure early on in the giving journey because the number one enemy does not like giving because it's a great expression of living out like the way we were created to be. So he's not interested in that so much. So what I have to be aware of is that I believe when we give, we're most like Jesus. And yet I'm a flawed person. So I think that I'm not interested in spending time worrying if I've got it wrong, worrying if I gave too much, too little. I'm just not. I try to be sensitive to what my spirit and heart are feeling, and big stuff I do in agreement with my wife. And so, then you can trust your gut and your gal and Jesus, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think giving together is good. It's also a big challenge area for me because I like to move and I'm an activator and my wife's a processor. So gas pedal brake kind of situation going on for me. So we have limits. We don't give over a certain amount. I should say I don't give over a certain amount most of the time without her and I being in agreement. So, and that was because I was doing things that were at her. She was not brought up with this. So very unfamiliar to her to be pretty unreasonable in giving.
I would think that that's a really hard thing for a husband and wife, regardless of if it's to do with charitable generosity, time generosity, work generosity, whatever, to get on the same page. How do you recommend that couples move towards getting on the same page in their generosity or giving journey?
Well, like I said before, I host the Wow Factor podcast, and every episode I ask them their wow, their word of wisdom. And one time a guy said, you got to start. I think that's really where it's at. You've got to start the conversation and have some trust, and it's going to be clunky. But this is a big deal, and it's so worth it. But it's God's sense of humor too. I don't get it. I mean, she just wants to pray about it for 2 days, and I'm like, this is a no-brainer. I mean, fall down, bump your head, let's give. But that's how it is. So we had a limit for a while at $500, and anything over 500, we'd talk about and discuss. And so one day she was balancing the checkbook, and she said, "How come there's so many $450 checks written?" I said, "Well, I didn't want to wait." So I don't recommend that one. I'm actually getting ready this week to propose a higher limit because I got to give her the inflation line, Chris.
How do you even approach a conversation like that? Because I do feel like a lot of people are on different pages sometimes with their spouse when it comes to giving, especially because the things that people approach you for are people who know you in a certain context, and the people who approach her probably know her in a totally different context. And you might both be passionate about different things.
Well, I think you said the word passionate, so that's when you start to actually have conversations and learn things about each other. So maybe for me, I'm interested in one area of impact, and my wife might be more interested in a mercy ministry-oriented kind of thing. Well, I might not be naturally predisposed to mercy. I'm like, got a problem, build a bridge, get over it, right? That's kind of hard. That's cold. That's just not so great. But what's happened for her and I is as we've both brought our different passions to the table, we have begun to give in both of those areas. And so where your treasure is, your heart is. So as we have given into mercy-related ministries, that's changed my heart and made me less of a jerk and saying things like build a bridge, get over it. On the other hand, she's come over and started to give, and her heart started to adjust towards areas I was passionate about. So this isn't an overnight thing. And I just think you just work at it and talk about it and build trust around that. I mean, I like to be a creative giver. I get that label a lot. I don't need it publicly, but I like to dream up really creative things that I think are thoughtful for people.
Mm.
And yeah, we were just saying the other day, the hardest person for me to get things for is my wife because we're so close and we kind of have what we need. You know, you're all squared away, and so you're just like, I'm going to be working next year to, and I think I got a doozy for Christmas, so I'm in good shape there. But I think I'm going to keep working on, showing that more intentional, unique, creative thoughtfulness to her. And we also pulled our kids into it very early. Very, very, very powerful concept. Not always with the amounts when they were in their low teens, but always painting the picture of we've got an emergency giving fund, right? Our buddy Ramsey always says emergency fund. We just put giving to it. So we told our kids, hey, we got X in this fund. If you see a need, let's talk about it and work through it. That's how you train it.
Mm.
And then you do it together and you say, well, what did you experience? Oh, I think they were not grateful for it. Yep, you're right. They told us we didn't have to do that. And we're like, yeah, we kind of know that. We know we didn't have to give, but we say these dumb things in our society, don't we? Are you sure? Oh, you don't need to do that. Oh, yeah. If I take that, then I'm going to have to do something for somebody else. What? Who said that? Where's that in the Bible? So,
Why is it so hard for people to receive a gift sometimes?
I got a chapter in my book on that. Receiving's brutal. I mean, look at the culture we're in. We're a self-made. It's humbling to receive.
Mm.
I know when I first sold our business and things were a little tighter, and a friend let me go to his beautiful house in Florida, and they left the car at the airport. I think the first 3 days of that week, I was just frustrated. I should be able to do all this on my own. I should be the one doing this. I'm in the guy's house. I see his picture, him and his wife, and I'm just like, gosh, and then it dawned on me that they were getting extreme joy by sharing their home and car. And I was over here pouting, making it about me. And that began to change things.
Wow.
Where when somebody gives something to me, I'm even looking at a gift that somebody gave me, and I'm like, they thought of me and thought that was unique. And that means a lot.
Mm.
And how I'm going to use that gift, I'm not sure. But I want to know somebody thought of me.
Mm.
And so if somebody's giving to me, I think I need to have the posture of gratitude,
Mm. Well, and I think one thing that I've started to come to realize over the years for myself is that I used to think, don't buy me a card because I'd rather just have the $3 or whatever. Like, I don't want the card, just send the money or give it to somebody else. But it is robbing somebody of giving the joy that they had the fun in giving. And so I think I've changed my perspective on gifts that I think are silly or dumb or that mean nothing to me. Sometimes somebody giving me a gift isn't about me getting the gift, right? And it's helping reshape that perspective. Okay, Brad, I want to finish with 10 rapid fire questions where you just say the first thing that comes to mind and there is no wrong answer.
Fun.
Who's the first person you think of when I say servant leadership?
Lindsay Snyder.
5 words that most describe you. Or maybe it's 6 based on...
Yes, it is. Thank you. Good catch. Entrepreneurial spirit, life passion is giving.
Favorite book or author?
My favorite author is Mark Batterson.
That's awesome. Favorite food?
I like beef tenderloin.
Favorite thing to do in your free time?
I like HIIT workouts.
This might fit that or might be different. What's a surprising fact about you?
I like watches.
Oh, what kind?
I'll leave that as a mystery.
Lots of watches. I like it. Favorite place you've been?
Sharm el Sheikh.
I gotta look
It's
that
in
up.
the bottom part of the Sinai Peninsula.
Wow. I know you travel a lot, but is there anywhere in the world you want to go that you have not been to yet?
No.
I love that. All right. What's the best advice you've ever received?
You make a living by what you get, but you make a life by what you give.
That's good. All right. And finally, we talk a lot about servant leadership on this podcast. Why do you think it's important for people to become better servant leaders?
I think it's the ultimate model of leadership with an asterisk next to it. It doesn't mean you're soft. It doesn't mean you don't make hard decisions. And it doesn't mean that you're a pushover, and that might be soft, but just doubling down on servant leaders are strong, they're thoughtful, they're caring, they're decisive, and they also have a deep sense that it's way beyond them.
That's so good. Well, Brad, thank you so much first for being on the podcast, and thank you for just the content you're putting out. I'm excited for people to find more about the I Like Giving stuff, but also about the kids stuff that you're doing.
Yes, Generous Family, generousfamily.com. You can go there, and you can also check out our Love Wins hats. They are going crazy. We have 316 on the side of them. It's the those 20-somethings are tearing it up on our team. But the thing is that parents are loving the hats too. They're stylish, and everyone's prayed over, Chris. Every hat that goes out's prayed over. And what's powerful about that is the prayer is that people will talk about God and talk about giving, and it's happening like crazy, like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of hats later. And we just started that this year. So Love Gives, pretty cool initiative of our overall organization, the nonprofit I Like Giving.
Well, we'll make sure that we link to those hats too. And also, I said this before we talked, but I think it's really cool how your son has gotten involved as well. And I think people should go check out what your son is doing too, because he's kind of following in your footsteps. And it's really fascinating to watch just the father-son team tearing this up.
He would be a powerful guest. He's an incredible servant leader. I think at 24, he manages 17 people and really worked all through college, ran a fairly significant part of our budget out of a dorm room. So I think he's at Drew Formsma on Instagram. And then on LinkedIn. Is that Andrew Formsma? Is that right? I'm a little light on social. He's going to be like, Dad, you should kind of know. Let's go.
Well, we might throw a link to that in too, so people can follow him too. But thank you, Brad, for your time and your generosity of being with us.
You bet, Chris. It's an honor.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Servant Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to never miss an update. Be sure to check out the servantleadershippodcast.org for more updates and additional bonus content.